Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Becoming series, where we explore the deep truths and the principles that will enable you become everything you were created to be and to do. Now, in this episode, I want to talk about the concept of greatness. Yeah, greatness. Now, when you hear that word greatness, what immediately springs to your mind? I think for most people, when we think about that word or when we hear that word, we immediately think about people from the past, right, who have done amazing things with their lives. Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, the tycoons, the Muhammad Ali's, the sport athletes, uh, the people who have done amazing things, who have done incredible things that the world remembers. Those are the people that we refer to as great, right? But I want to ask a question. Is greatness only for a certain set of people? Because when we think about those people, somehow in our minds, we seem to place a barrier between themselves, between them and ourselves, right? It's like those people, those are the people who are great people. And we're just your normal everyday folk who are trying to get things done with their lives. But why the barrier? Why the dichotomy? Why is there that difference between quote unquote those who are great and the rest of us? Like, those are the gods, and we're just like the mere mortals. Is greatness only for a certain set of people? Now, if you look back through history, and if you examine the philosophies of people like the ancient Greeks, they had very definite ideas about things like leadership and greatness. So, for instance, they believed that leadership and greatness were functions of um, giftings from the gods. Actually, the word charisma that we use a lot today is actually a Greek word, right? Which means giftings of the gods. So the Greeks thought that, or they believed that um, charisma was a function of the gods gifting you certain qualities, right? They also believed that leadership and greatness were a function of birth traits. If you had particular birth traits like, blonde hair, blue eyes, thin lips, straight nose, and all that, then you were destined for greatness or for leadership. They also believe that uh, leadership and greatness were a function of the class you were born into, right? Because you had leaders and uh, you know the so-called affluent or influential people, and then you had slaves. So for them, it was a very cut and dry society. It was either you were on this side or you were on the other side. And I think that a lot of those ideas have washed through history. Because if you know history pretty well, you understand that the Greeks were the people who taught us quite a lot. From them, we got a lot of the ideas that we still use today. Things in education, things in politics. Actually, democracy was a Greek concept. Democratia, right? The idea that people could self-govern irrespective of how large or how complex their society was. Democratia. That's an idea that was invented 2,500 years ago, right? So a lot of those ideas that the Greeks thought of, because they were the thinkers of society, still permeate our thinking today. And I think the concept of greatness is one of those things, because you have those stories about the heroes who just came up and did, so many great things, etc. And the rest of us would just marvel. So it seems to bring up the idea that people, or that some people are gifted with some certain qualities that make them stand out from the rest of the human race. And that's an idea that still permeates our thinking today, whether they're in sports or in education, in politics, in entertainment, whatever it is. They just seem to be those people who are supremely gifted at doing things that the rest of us cannot do. But here's the thing: If you believe that only a certain group of people were created great or were born to be great, and the rest of us aren't, it throws up a very interesting line of questioning. And I think this dials back to one of the discussions that we had earlier about the concept of the origin of the human race. Now, if you believe that, or if you believe the theory of creation, meaning that um, everything that has been produced, in the world, in the universe, is the function of God, right? Who purposed everything to be the way He planned it. It now begs the question, if God created all human beings in His own image, then why would He deliberately? Because you have to remember that if you follow the theory of creation, everything is a function of purpose, right? So if He created everyone in His own image, then why would He deliberately make some people or imbue some people with certain qualities that the rest of us don't have? And if that's the case, is that consistent with the character of God? And I think that throws up a very, very interesting line of discussion. And for me, I don't think that that notion is correct, right? Because when God created man, I remember that man, the word for man is the word ish, not the physical body, but the spirit, ish. And ish was what was breathed into the physical man, and from there we started to procreate, etc. So it means that, as the Bible tells us, before the physical earth was created, we existed as spirits inside God, and we were released, right, when the physical man was created, and over generations, over the millennia, we were all born, right, such that we're now currently 8 billion people on the face of the earth from one man. But the thing is, I don't think that God would deliberately and purposefully imbue some people with certain characteristics that would make them greater, quote unquote, than other people, because that is not consistent with His character, right? God values everyone, all of His children, all of creation. Each human life is sacred to God. Each human life has the same value in the eyes of God. You cannot quantify the value of a human life. So why would He deliberately make some people great and others not great? So I think that we've been looking at the concept of greatness through the wrong lens. I also think that when we seem to uh, look at some people as these great and mighty people that have done so much with their lives, that the rest of us can only sit and stare and open our mouths in awe, you are neglecting something. What are you neglecting? You are neglecting your own seed of greatness. I think that greatness is a seed. And what the people that we admire so much have done is to recognize that the seed within themselves is something that they can deliver to humanity. Now, that's not to say that um, everybody has the same level of ability, right? Because if we look at again, I think this is also consistent with the character of God. For instance, if we look at this Bible story, the parable of the talents, it said that the man who was going on the journey gave to his servants 5 talents, 4 talents, and 1 talent. No, 5 talents, 2 talents, and 1 talent. Not according to what he had, but according to their ability to manage, because everybody has different levels of ability, right? You can be a good businessman or a good entrepreneur, but that may not mean you would be at the same level as a Steve Jobs, for instance, or Bill Gates, for instance. You have certain abilities. Yours might be more than somebody else's, and somebody else's might be more than yours, right? So we have different levels of ability, and those different levels of ability are directly skewed to our purpose. The purpose that we have are individual, right? And we are meant to fulfill them based on the abilities, on our individual potentialities, right? But that does not mean that one person is greater than the other person. Everybody has an individual seed of greatness within them that if you take time to develop, if you take time to harness, if you take time to build and to grow and to deploy, would also escalate you into the pantheon of the great ones. Your audience may not be global. It may be limited to your community. It may be limited to your country, right? Whereas some other person may have an audience that will be global or would be international or would cut across the continent. But in the within the gambit of your purpose, the people that you serve would see you as a great person. And I think that is where we get it wrong because we're focusing on I want to be great, I want to be great, I want to be great. But what is greatness really? What is greatness? Greatness really is the release of a gift that you have discovered in your life, that you have taken time to develop, that you have taken time to build, that you have taken time to deploy, and you're serving that gift to the people who need it. Those people are the people that would call you great. You don't call yourself great, they would call you great. So I think this is an idea that we need to even study deeper to get to realize how it really functions. Otherwise, we'll continue to live our lives believing that, you know, we're just going to live a normal life, and those great people, let them go do great things, forgetting that everybody has a seed of greatness. And I think we need to delve deeper into this idea so that we can come out with really strong answers that would help us going forward. So let's stay tuned for another episode coming your way shortly.